So let's start at the top. What do we think of Trump's intentions from his first moves? Our first guest, the one and only Bill O'Reilly. How are you, sir?
The big-time conservative Bill O'Reilly. Is that correct? Is that how you describe me in your monologue?
Are you a conservative?
It's a little misleading. I'm not.
Are you
I'm
a conservative?
Traditional independent. I just said no.
Whatever.
I'm a traditional independent.
Okay. I've heard you say you're a conservative before. I've heard you say that, but go ahead.
You haven't.
Of these picks, oh yes, I have, but that's okay.
Yes.
Of these picks, what do you believe is remarkable of the picks?
I don't think anything's remarkable. I understand the picks, but let me put it into perspective, unlike 95% of television pundits. So the two most powerful people in the country beside President Trump are Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, and Stephen Miller, who is the deputy chief of policy. Now, I've never even heard of that before, but what Miller is going to be assigned to do is watch all of the other cabinet people to make sure they do what Donald Trump wants. So Miller becomes the confidant to the President of the United States. I know Miller pretty well. Now, you talk about a big-time conservative, that would be Stephen Miller, not Bill O'Reilly. And I first ran across Miller in the Duke lacrosse case, where he defended the lacrosse players who were unmercifully brutalized by the American press, and then that whole story fell apart. Miller was in the middle of that as a very young man. And he is a guy I can get on the phone and he'll tell me the truth about anything I ask him, and that's over the years. Now this man, Stephen Miller, is extremely powerful, and everybody in Trump's cabinet will know that. Susie Wiles is the whisperer, okay? So when Trump goes over the line, Susie will try to pull him back. Very powerful woman. I don't know her, but I know how she operates, and she's very level-headed, in my opinion. What else you want to know tonight from the big-time conservative?
She hasn't gotten enough. I don't know why you're denying that, but that's okay. She is not getting enough positive attention for being the first woman ever picked to be chief of staff. If it were a Democrat who had done that, it would have been celebrated in the media, but because it's Trump, they don't. No, it matters. It matters that it's the first woman who's doing it when they're over half the population. It's a good move.
All right, Jill Biden was the first one. She ran a White House for the last 8 months. I don't like the gender stuff. I mean, I just want people who love their country, want to do good for the American people, and invoke policies that are positive. I don't know, again, Ms. Wiles, I can't evaluate her other than I know people within the campaign, and they say she is not some kind of ideological loon. She's very practical.
Right. I mean, look, my point is that diversity of thought, diversity of perspective is always helpful. I'm not talking about just checking a box. I'm saying that by all accounts, she was fundamental to his success, and her appointment would be celebrated if it wasn't by Trump. Now, Miller, you didn't express any concerns about him. This guy is a constant red flag for us in the media. He was the author of the Muslim travel ban. He has argued a lot of things that seem jingoistic and prejudiced about how he feels about who's coming into the country. Do people have him wrong?
I don't know. You make up your own mind. I know the policy that the Trump administration tried to implement was there were countries on the watch list that had no regulation over terrorists, and they didn't want people from those countries infiltrating into America. That doesn't sound too jingoistic to me. It sounds like a national security play. I wrote a book on this, Killing the Killers. And the Trump administration was very effective in dismantling the Islamic Jihad. Very effective. So if you're going to throw Miller up as some kind of kook, I'm going to say no. You may disagree with the way he goes about it, but he is a fairly sophisticated thinker. And I haven't seen anything that Stephen Miller has done that causes me concern. That being said, everybody should understand what's going to happen now. So there isn't going to be unsupervised immigration any longer. There isn't going to be the reason that that Hegseth was chosen as defense secretary is not for strategy. All right, he's not going to do that. Marco Rubio will do that with Trump and the national security team. Hegseth's going to watch the generals because Trump got so burned by them, and he's so angry that he wants, it's a watchdog play with Pete Hegseth, okay? And he's a very loyal guy to Trump. So you have to understand it's a top down on Trump. Trump is going to run everything, and he wants eyes and ears in all of these areas reporting back to him. That's how this country is going to be run.
The only pushback I have is that you're right. It wound up being a tailored list of countries, but that wasn't Miller's original intention. It was a Muslim ban originally, and it was open in terms of which countries.
I'd have to
Eventually,
see the
they had to compromise on it.
I'd have to see the documentation of that. You may be right, but I haven't seen documentation. If you can find a soundbite where he said that, I know you can't do it instantaneously.
No, it was the original proposal.
But go ahead.
The original proposal was open-ended.
Well, that's the proposal that was rolled out.
Right. Right, and then it was modified. But with Hegseth, you're saying this all as if it's all okay. We're not used to hearing that people have assembled a cabinet that is to be basically their spy network on everybody in the agencies, and they're not really running anything. It's all just one guy and his couple of people planning it. This will be unusual, will it not?
Well, not really. A lot of people don't like this governing style, that's for sure. The press is going wild already because they hate Trump. But Trump is going to run this administration the way he wants to. Franklin Delano Roosevelt did the same thing. He had his cadre all over the federal government watching people that might subvert what he wanted done. FDR was a very centralized president. And you didn't have a real aggressive media back then, but that was the Depression years and the World War II years. Roosevelt didn't brook much. You did it his way or you were out. He wouldn't even talk to Harry Truman, his vice president, because he didn't trust Truman. All right, so he isolated Truman totally. All right, that was FDR. So this isn't new. It's been done. Richard Nixon was paranoid, really paranoid. And he had his guys, Ehrlichman and Haldeman, watch every single thing that happened in the federal government, and I think you know that if you studied Watergate. So Trump is going to run it in a fashion that he got burned the first time, and those who burned him are not going to reappear in any way, shape, or form.
On the screen, people are seeing while we speak, tomorrow, Mr. Homan, who's going to be in charge of border policy or executing Trump's policy, is going to be on tomorrow. I'm going to give a big chunk of time to kind of, to not rush it. Let's have a real conversation about why it is, why you want it to be, and how. So that'll be good for the audience to get a feel of a guy who's getting a lot of attention right now. Do you believe that
Can I give you a
having both houses of Congress... Oh, yeah, go ahead. Please, please.
Yeah, I want to give you a suggested line of questioning for Homan. So the solution in the short term is to have Mexico do what they did in the last year of Trump's first term, to mobilize the army, the Mexican army, on the southern Guatemala and the northern USA border to stop the cartels from bringing all these people in here. Now, I don't know where that is. I know Trump has already called the new Mexican president, who's a socialist and who's afraid of the cartels, doesn't want to go up against them, okay? But that would be a fascinating line to see what Homan knows about that. See how the Trump administration is going to handle those cartels, not only on smuggling people, but smuggling narcotics. I'm sorry to intrude, but I think that'll be a great line of questioning for Homan.
It is absolutely a fundamental need in the conversation, and thank you for highlighting it. If Trump has both houses of Congress, do you believe that immigration will be his first major legislative initiative?
Well, he'll walk and chew gum. So the headlines will be migration. All right, if he gets the Mexico deal, which I think he will, because he's basically told the Mexican president, you don't cooperate with us, we're going to strangle your economy. We're already pumping oil like crazy when I get in. We're going to put you out of business. And so the president's got to. She's got to cooperate with him. So that'll be a headline. But at the same time, he has got to get oil out of the ground fast for a number of reasons. And I don't know how fast you can do it. So he's got to open up Anwar. He's got to get the Keystone Pipeline up and running. He's got to knock out all the Biden regulations that were put in because of global warming, which he will. But I don't know how quickly he can get that done, because that will lead to the drop in prices at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and the essentials of life. And therefore, the Trump administration would be able to say by June, look what we did. And that's what Trump wants now. He wants to parade achievements out, all right, so the American people like him. He's in it for glory. He's in it for being the best president. That's what he wants in his second term. He don't want to prove himself anymore. And this small ball about going after people he doesn't like, I don't think he's going to do that. He's going to waste his time doing that. He might have somebody else, annoy them, but it's not going to be him. He's going to try to get 4 or 5 things done. The Ukraine war is going to be big, and he's going to get that ceasefire with Putin. I think that deal's already been done, by the way. He'll get it, and then he'll get a big headline, and that's what he wants. So when you tune on CNN and all these other things, and you see the small ball, oh, he's doing this, he's doing that, you're wasting your time watching that. Keep your eye on the big ones, because that's where he's going.
I agree with that analysis 100%, although that imitation is usually how you describe me. But I'll allow you to share it with just your impression of other networks in general.
Okay. I want everybody to read Confronting.
Yes.
Sure. I want everybody to read Confronting the Presidents. And here is the most important thing. In my store, I have a store, okay? And we keep prices artificially low. We have not woke gear. It is the fastest selling stuff we have ever had, Cuomo. And I'm going to send you some not woke gear, particularly the mug that I want you to put on your little table. And when you're thirsty, okay, but you got to lift it so people see not woke. That's where you want to be identified. Cuomo is not woke. He's an independent. All right? Just like I'm the big bad conservative. Cuomo is the not woke independent.
Big yes, bad no. Bill O'Reilly, thank you very much. Let's not focus on who's woke. Let's focus on who's broke. I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.